Okay, so here we go with a screencast about the position statement, covering the handout that gives the overview of the position statement assignment. And so I'm going to jump right in. I did things a little bit differently this time, but anyway, let's start with this rhetorical situation that maybe gives you a sense of the assignment most compactly and concisely. So a position statement. The assignment is to write a position statement, which means writing an argument on behalf of an organization, outlining the organization's public position on a relevant, debatable issue. So a position statement is a special document that organizations publish, often on their website or in a journal publication that's put out by the organization. And it's a way of letting the public and also, actually more importantly, letting members of that organization know where the organization stands on an issue. So for example, if there is an organization, a nationwide organization of parents of autistic children, on their website they might have a few position statements, and each one kind of says this is what we think is the correct position on this autism issue. So for example, there might be a position statement about the organization's beliefs about the role of vaccinations in causing autism. And so the position statement might explain why they don't subscribe to the idea that vaccinations have a role in autism, or might explain the opposite. But it kind of says to people who want to be part of the organization, or who are part of it, and to the general public who want to know about the organization, it says this is where the organization stands on this issue. Here's which side of the debate we stand on and why. And so in terms of audience, a position statement like this really has a primary and a secondary audience. The primary audience would be the members of the organization. Again, like I said, letting everyone in the organization know what they're subscribing to if they join the organization, that the organization believes this way, has this opinion, thinks there's the best evidence for this approach, and so on. A secondary audience is members of the public who might be doing research, or who may be looking for support, or who may be considering joining the organization, or various possibilities there. General public. So you have a secondary audience there. So primary audience, members of the organization; secondary audience, members of the public. The topic of a position statement is pretty narrow. It's on a single issue. And in Axelrod and Cooper's chapter on argument that you're reading for this assignment, they talk about issue and what an issue is. So you may already know it's a debatable question. A position statement doesn't try to tackle multiple questions, multiple debates, right? It takes on a single debate. The topic is best represented by a question, one question. Not just any question. It can't be a question about what's factual or not, but it's a question about what it's a question that people answer in different ways, and it's a question that people have rationales for their disagreeing different answers to that question. And so the topic you choose has to relate to either a real or fictional organization that would be for which that topic would be relevant. So it could be a political advocacy group, a medical organization, or an educational institution. One thing I'm doing differently, I don't think I've done this on other assignments, is this is meant to give you an overview of what you need to know in order to confidently write a position statement. And it's in 4 categories: the subject matter knowledge that you need, the writing process knowledge that you need, the genre knowledge, and the rhetorical knowledge. And I'm doing this because, well, I've been reading this book about writing and about teaching writing, and it says that expert writers who write very confidently have this kind of knowledge. And so these are the things you need to have a good grasp of by the time you start drafting your position statement. So in terms of subject matter knowledge, you've got to understand the issue that you're writing about and understand multiple sides of it and aspects of it. You need to be somewhat of an expert, or become somewhat of an expert on the question you're writing about. You do that by doing research, right, which is sort of independent reading, finding things to read about the topic to develop some expertise or subject matter knowledge. And you're going to need information to back up what you say. So, for example, you might need some statistics to support a point that you make in your position statement. And you get that also from your research. You draw it from sources that you find. In terms of writing process knowledge, it's a research paper. And so I'm, to some degree, counting on you to have some knowledge already about the process of putting together a research paper and putting together an argument. And so that's writing process knowledge, knowing how to do research, how to find the right kind of sources, how to evaluate those sources so that you're finding solid sources that'll be useful to you, putting the information from sources into a paper in the proper manner, documenting the sources, and so on. These are the kinds of skills you need to bring to the process of writing this position statement. Genre knowledge. Genre means type of writing. Novel is a genre, play is a genre, poem is a genre, and then in academic writing there's lots of very specific genres. So position statement in this case is the genre that we're working in. And so you got to be familiar with that genre. Expert writers are well versed in and understand the genres that they write in. They don't write in every genre, but they write in ones that they're experts in. And so the reading assignment is about the genre in a broad way. It's about argument in general. I'll talk later about how we're not exactly doing the kind of argument that they mostly talk about. The specific genre is position statement. It's that kind of argument. And so the examples that we look at in the next few weeks will help you understand genre and how it works and what the features of a position statement might be, and what are the things you can and cannot do in a position statement, and so on. And then the last kind of knowledge that contributes to a feeling of confidence and expertise is rhetorical knowledge. And that just means a good understanding of the relationship between yourself as a writer and the audience. This is the thing that's most complicated, I think, about this assignment. It's a complex relationship between the writer and the readers. And so, as I say here, there's a primary audience, as I said earlier, and they likely know a good bit about the topic. But then there's a secondary audience that you have to also be mindful of that probably has less knowledge of the topic, which doesn't mean they have no knowledge of it, but they're not experts in the topic. In most cases, in real life, the writer of a position statement is a member of the organization. Also, the writer is anonymous. A position statement is very anonymous from the writer's standpoint. Organizations don't say, Betsy Johnson wrote this and it represents what we think. They say, here's a document that represents what we believe. It's kind of like we wrote it. Of course, one person probably wrote it on their behalf. And so that's a complicated situation that we're going to try to keep in the foreground, because a lot of the decisions you make about what to do in your position statement might have to do with audience and purpose and the rhetorical situation. So I'm trying to put it in a nutshell here. I believe in putting complicated things in concise nutshells if possible. So in a position statement, the writer uses sound reasoning and solid evidence to make a convincing case for an organization's stance on an issue. And then I refer you to an example. This is a link to a position statement from the National Council of Teachers of English. You'll notice it's anonymous in the sense that it doesn't say who wrote it, I don't believe. It's presented more as, so to speak, written by the entire organization in a sense. How should your position statement be organized? Well, as an argumentative essay suitable for online publication, we can talk more about that. It should be about at least 3,000 words. The position statement itself, the argument that you write, at least 3,000 words. So this is the longest document and the most complex project of the semester, and it'll take us through the rest of the semester. We'll be working on different parts and pieces of it from now until the end of the semester. We're going to use APA format to document sources, and you've probably done that before, but I don't know if anyone memorizes all of APA format. I certainly don't, but a resource like this from OWL Purdue website can help you sort out documentation. So there's a link to it. The process should be somewhat familiar. You're going to look at one another's prospectuses, and I will give you feedback on your prospectus. But we're also going to do an annotated bibliography, listing and describing your sources or intended sources, an abstract of a certain type, and so on. And we'll continue to have feedback from classmates and from me, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the semester, there's going to be a portfolio of all your sort of finalized documents. We can talk about that eventually. So I'll do a screencast on the prospectus as well. Important thing to realize, it's important, so I highlighted it, is the fact that the reading assignment by Axelrod and Cooper about writing an argument, they don't really ever talk specifically about a position statement. They talk about a position paper that, is sort of a personal argument, letting the world know where you personally stand on an issue. But a position statement is different. It's not as personal. It's letting the world know where an organization stands on an issue. They don't ever quite address that exact kind of argument, so make sure you realize the difference there. You're going to do an annotated bibliography, and the idea there is you list some potential sources for the position statement, and you annotate them, you write some notes about them and describe them. We'll be talking more about that in coming weeks. Also, you'll do an abstract. Different abstracts serve different purposes, and the purpose of ours is going to be to give a preview of the position statement. Abstracts are sometimes written after an article is finished, but in this case it's written before a position statement is drafted. We'll go through drafting and the usual feedback mechanisms and revising and so on, and editing. And so the position statement project has multiple parts. The annotated bibliography is for a grade, the abstract is for a grade, and of course primarily the grade is on the 3,000 word or more position statement. So as a whole, it's 25% of your course grade, with the breakdown there. Plagiarism risk assessment. When we're doing research papers and incorporating things from sources into our own writing, then the risk of plagiarism is pretty high unless we're very careful about signaling to our audience very clearly what comes from sources, which sources they come from, whether we're using exact words or not, and so on. So we're going to have to be careful, as always. It's possible to find, you might choose a topic and find a couple weeks later, oh, here's a position statement about my exact topic. And so, read such things with caution. That you can't borrow heavily from an existing position statement. But I would say you could read a position statement that's similar to the one you're working on. It may give you it may clue you into some strategies that you could use, and so on and so forth. But they have to be used with care. And then in terms of integration, again, I don't know if I've done this with every assignment. I'm trying to get to where I do it with every assignment in all my classes, trying to make sure students realize that what they're learning from one assignment has repercussions in the future and draws upon things in the past and has a broader application. And so you have some prior knowledge. You have some prior knowledge of argument. You have some prior knowledge. You may even have encountered position statements and seen them. And so you can build upon what you know and what you've seen, and you have prior knowledge of the process for a research paper. As always, since this is a writing course and it's a writing assignment, it relates to general education. There are general education goals that cut across your entire college career. And so, in particular, this assignment and this whole course relates to the communication related gen ed outcome. And then also, I hope you realize this, when the semester's over, it's not a question of, you'll never use the skills that you sharpened and developed in this assignment. You'll never use them ever again. In fact, I think you might. You might end up, as a professional, being part of a professional organization and contributing in some way to a position statement. If you don't do that, writing argumentatively doesn't end when you graduate. I write argumentatively all the time, and so do people who don't work at colleges and so on. And so I'm trying to emphasize you can use these skills that you're working on here in the future, and not just in professional but also civic contexts, meaning as a parent or as a citizen or as a neighbor, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I tried to keep this as short as I could. It got a little bit long, but let me know if you have questions.